Hey everybody, this is Alexis with Recruiting Daily. Thanks for coming to hang out with us today. We're going to get started shortly. We're just going to wait and let a couple more people start rolling in because I think if you're in my time zone here on the East Coast, you probably just got back from lunch. So you got to clean out your Tupperware and all that fun stuff. Get your water for the afternoon, and then we're going to get started, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got Britt with Intella. We've got William Tincup from Recruiting Daily. So hang tight just a couple more minutes and we will get started shortly. So thanks for being here and just hang out with me a little bit longer. Hey guys, this is Alexis with Recruiting Daily. If you didn't hear me just a few minutes ago, we were just giving everybody a chance to get situated and get ready to watch the webinar. Like I said, if you're on East Coast, you probably just got back from lunch, so you're getting all settled in and relaxed, your tummy's full, and we're going to have a great time today. So just a few little quick things for the webinar if you've never had the pleasure before. So you are in audio mode. You can hear us. We can't hear you. As much as you probably sound lovely, we can't hear you. However, take a look at your little panel there. You can ask us questions. I will be looking at that and letting them know along the way just in case. We can always interrupt and bother them because we know Tincup loves that. So no worries there. Ask questions. If we can't get to you, we will get back to you. So please don't worry. We want to make sure everybody gets their questions answered. And this is being recorded. So you're going to get a copy of the recording. We are going to have it up within the next 24 hours. So everything will be available to you just in case you miss out on a little bit of the fun. If you can, please follow along today. #RDaily. That would be greatly appreciated. Today's webinar, 10 recruitment process failures and how to fix them, intertwined with our friends at Intella that are going to show us a little bit about their product as well. We have Britt from Intella. She is a mom, the head of recruiting, Ironman finisher, badass cookie baker, but don't ask her to send you any. I already tried, and that was an epic fail. But she's awesome regardless. And speaking on our behalf for Recruiting Daily is our president, William Tincup. He can eat the cookies, he can't bake them, so don't ask him either because that's going to be another epic fail. All right, kick things off. We got Britt, the cookie maker. Britt, are you ready to show us some awesomeness before we dive into some other things today?
I am so ready. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, here we go.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you guys today. And, you know, I figured there was no one better than us to source, but for us to source William Tincup and see if we can't get him to engage with us and potentially consider making a career move. So what I've done here is I've pulled him up on LinkedIn. So I will tell you guys, I have been in the recruiting space for a long time, and like they say, it's kind of hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And LinkedIn has been my best friend for a long, long time. And the reality is, 94% of us recruiters hang out on LinkedIn. We are very active there. And so when I first started getting used to using Intello, I found that the Chrome extension, which I'm showing over here to the right, was how I most liked to use Intello to get started. So as I'm going through LinkedIn and I'm looking at profiles and I realize that I want to learn more about someone, I can just look over at the Chrome extension and see that I can be taken straight to William's Twitter feed, or I can see what he shared on, Facebook or on GitHub. And if he's somebody that I want to connect to immediately, I can also just go straight from this Chrome extension and I can send him an email, because the reality is, while 94% of us recruiters are active in LinkedIn, only 36% of candidates are active in LinkedIn. And studies have shown that they are much more likely and much more interested in hearing from somebody, hearing about job opportunities via email. So I'm just going to go ahead and I can click on this link in the Chrome extension and I can go ahead and send William an email. And then there's tons and tons and tons of other benefits that are included, like our email tracking, which would give me the ability to, and also give me the ability to send on behalf of other people. But I'm getting way ahead of myself here, so I am going to pass it back over to you, William, and let you share some of the things that we can avoid failing on in the future.
Sure thing. So folks, many of you have probably heard me speak before. So I'm not setting out to offend anybody, but if I do, please, let me know, because that's not really the bit. I'm trying. If anything, I'm trying to make you laugh and entertain you in some way. With all of these failures, it's going to kind of touch some nerves. It's going to kind of seem personal. And I want to kind of get in front of that to start with. Is, first of all, you're on a webinar and you're trying to learn. So, if at any point you feel kind of deflated, like I'm, kicking you in the butt a little bit, that's not purposeful, because it's really the people not on the webinar that I should be kicking in the butt, etc. So just to take it with a grain of salt. These process failures, these areas of failures, if you will, forces of failure in recruiting, they happen to all of us. They absolutely happen to all of us. Different stages, different careers, different things happen to you. So the first one I want to talk about is where you fall in love with a candidate and you absolutely know that they're the right person. You know it in your heart. The data suggests it. Your experience suggests it. You know it in your heart. And for whatever reason, you get talked out of the candidate. The hiring manager, one of your peers, somebody on the team, group interview, whatever. Just somebody talks you off the ledge, and they talk you off of backing the candidate. And what I really want you to kind of think about there, it's weak. It's absolutely weak to be talked off a position you know to be right. Okay? So that's the fail, and that process is when you're right, you know you're right. And you got to fight so that you don't have the regrets that inevitably come with every failure where you didn't fight for the right candidate. I call that candidate regret, kind of like regrettable churn, regrettable turnover. This is candidate regret. So let's talk about how we can fix that. This is actually a slogan I live by. It's a bar sign, actually. It's an anonymous quote. No one really knows where it comes from. But in my favorite bar in Fort Worth, it's actually a sign behind the bar at Del Frisco's in downtown Fort Worth. It's "Do right and fear no man." And I've kind of lived by this, which allows me to be bold. It allows me to not care about as much about what people think, what people kind of tend to care about, and how they get a little protective. And I think this is true of when you're the defender, the candidate advocate, which I think recruiters are, the candidate advocate, not necessarily the company advocate or the job advocate, but the candidate advocate. When you act on their behalf, there are occasions when you have to be bold. And so the fix for the failure is not believing in yourself well enough, and being talked out of a candidate you know is really awesome. And so the fix is really simple. Don't Don't allow that. Just always be bold. And, you know, another kind of a cliche is history favors the bold. I absolutely live my life that way. I believe in that. And I want all recruiters to believe in that, where they do that so that we don't have the great candidates accidentally slip through our hands because we got talked out of them. So let's go to the next failure. So again, laziness kind of sounds harsh. Not really trying to be harsh, but the point is that we all get lazy. And this is kind of like the fishing metaphor that I use with people is if you've caught fish in a certain part of the lake with a certain part of bait or certain bait at a certain time, turns out what you do is you keep going back to the same place because you know it works. Well, the problem with that line of logic is at one point it doesn't work. Yet we tend to keep going back to the same places. Okay, so let's say it's GitHub or Stack Overflow or whatever. The bit is we try something, it works, we know it's magical, and we're sourcing for the same candidate 6 months later, we go right back to it. It's maybe less fantastic. So when you don't get the responses that you need, and the responses can be quantity and quality, but when you don't get the responses that you need, essentially what you've done is you've short-circuited the quality process. Okay, so you've gotten less, but chances are you probably got less and worse. So the fail, the fail is actually challenging yourself in a microsecond. Okay, to not do that. Okay, so we all do this. This is actually slippery for all of us. We all fail at this. We all go back to trying. Some people call it experience too. That's the funny thing is they market it as like, oh no, I've got a ton of experience. Like, yeah, I get it. However, you can have experience, and that experience over the course of time, there's a diminished return if you're continuing to do the exact same thing over and over because it's comfortable. So let's take a look at the fix. So what I want you to do is right before you do the exact same thing you did for the last, you source it exactly the same way. So what I want you to do at that particular moment in your mind on a screen, just you and your conscious, is think to yourself and say, if we weren't already doing it this way, how would we do it? And what I want you to think there in that moment is you've never sourced for that position. You've never done anything, and literally for 60 seconds, I don't want you to spend a day on it, just a minute or two. How would I go about this? What have I heard recently? Because the beauty of recruiters, to me at least, is y'all share. Y'all, like no other community I'm aware of, y'all share. When something's great, you shout it from the mountaintops. You tell people, you tell your peers, you share it internally, you do that stuff. You get on Twitter and share it. You share good stuff. So in that moment, just harken back to, well, what have I learned? What have I heard? You know, what has Martin Burns said? What has a Bill Borman said? What has a Ryan Leary said? What has a Jackie Clayton said? What's somebody said that I know, I love, I respect? A Robin Schooling, I heard her say ... You know, that's where you pull that back, and then once you've solved that, maybe mix that in to what you already know works. Okay, so innovate, try to innovate, do something new, and then do what you also know, so that you're always kind of combining new stuff with what you know that works. That'll get you, in my opinion, both the quantity and the quality, okay, which is kind of what we're all solving for. All right, let's take a look at the next failure. Vagary. Yeah, okay, so here's the deal. Vagary is the devil. If you believe in the devil, okay, vagary is the devil to you. That's just the game. When someone's vague to you, oh, I want somebody that, you know, has a bachelor's, or, you know, or maybe not, or maybe a master's. Like, when you hear that stuff, it should make your skin burn, because they don't really know what they want. They want you to sort it out and figure it out. So vagary becomes the devil to you because it actually hinders you from success. When anyone's vague, candidates vague back to you about the feedback, hiring managers feedback, group interviews, anybody that tells you anything that's not crystal clear, and that's actually a problem. Your enemy, one of your enemies, you have many, but one of your enemies is vagary. So when you hear, your little spidey sense, your little antennas should go up anytime you hear vagary. Like, oh, I'm kind of getting a sense that that's vague. Yeah, that's not good for me. Vague actually doesn't, that doesn't help my interest. Vague does not work for me. So let's go ahead and take a look at the fix. So here's the bit. Crystal clear. Clarity or clear is your best friend. And it's uncomfortable, actually. So let me just kind of explain the bit. When someone's vague with you, they kind of know they're being vague, or maybe they don't. It doesn't really make a difference. But when you come back and say, yeah, it kind of sounds like vague. Do you want a degree or not? Do you want a GED or not? Do you want a master's or not? This is actually black and white. Yes or no? I actually need you to be clear now. Well, I don't know. Well, you know what? Make a decision, Sally. Let's go. Pick a lane. That's all I need you to do is pick a lane at this point. Yes or no. That's an uncomfortable situation. The good news is recruiters don't mind conflict. So the good news is you're already hardwired to do this. And the more successful recruiters and talent acquisition professionals already do it by pretty much second nature. But it's hard because it's conflict. These are people you like or people you respect, people you hang out with, drink with, whatever. And you don't want to kind of keep kicking their butt all the time. Like, I get it. But vagary, evil. Vagary is not your friend. Clarity is your best friend. And so that's the fail and that's the fix. Let's take a look at the next failure. Yeah, that's not really a word, but I think you get my point. Horseshittedness. So here's the deal. A current jab in the eye of everything great is culture fit. Some people believe in it, like that's their bit, and it is important. The problem becomes is when they can't describe it. That's the real thing. So people hide behind culture fit. Oh, you'll hear the feedback. Oh, so-and-so went to culture fit. She went to culture fit. He went to culture fit. So-and-so, that just didn't fit. Well, when you ask them, okay, yeah, I hear you. Describe what you mean. And again, this gets back to vagary, because culture fit is actually used as a bias. And we don't want to talk like this. We don't want anybody to know that this is actually the game that's going on. But truth is, we use culture fit to screen people out that we don't like and screw the protected class. Okay, we don't want to talk like that. I get it. And then you know what? I probably wouldn't talk like that either if I were a recruiter full time. But this is what happens in our organization. This is why we don't have diverse and inclusive cultures, is because we allow this stuff to happen. So we all know it, and we've all done it. We've all had this fail. So let's talk a little bit about the fix. You've got to confront bias when you see them. We're all biased. We all have biases. We're all, riddled with all kinds of complexities, and biases happen. But when you know that your organization is using culture fit as a bias, you've really got to stomp it out, because you're losing great candidates that actually would make your firm better, but you're losing them because people are hiding behind culture fit. And so the thing is that I kind of guide people around is make them describe it, okay? Make them explain it to you. Kind of gets back to vagary, but the thing is you force them, like, okay, yeah, I totally understand. Sandy's not a great culture fit. So explain that. Like, let's get into the details here. Bore me with the details. Why isn't she a culture fit? And if they can't explain it, it's just bias. That's all it is. And a part of what we do, a part of what makes us great, is that we're willing and able to confront bias. And so my call to you is confront it. When it happens, and it happens right in front of you, either subtle or not so subtle, just confront it, okay? We'll wake up and we will have more diverse and more inclusive cultures, because we'll be heading off biases at the path. So let's take a look at the next fail. Ghosting. So here's the deal about ghosting. And again, failure for all of us on some level is we believe, either implicitly or explicitly, that our job ends at onboarding. That our job is to find them, source them, interview them, sort them, get them all the way through the process, get them through the CRM, get them through the ATS, get the offer letter out, get them to accept, do the whole bit. And at that point, later, pull the plug, pass them to HR. Godspeed, little minnow. Hope it works out for you. And what we're learning right now is that onboarding is not a day. It's not a binder. It's not a checklist. It's not a week. Onboarding is the concept of that candidate deciding, did they make the right decision? And that process for them goes on far longer, than that day or week. And so your job continues to check in and to make sure for two reasons, really, primarily. One, you did a hell of a lot of work to get this person to say yes. Okay, let's just go ahead and celebrate that. You did a lot of work to get them to this point, and now they're there. You want to be interested in their career past the offer letter. So there's that. Two, you want to learn whether or not they fit and you made the right decision, they made the right decision, or not. So over the course of the time, if you're paying attention to them, listening to them, having coffee with them, etc., you're going to learn whether or not, you're going to learn how to make things better. You're going to learn how to recruit better, because you're going to start to learn over time, did that work, did that not work, etc. But if you're just passing off at onboarding or thereabouts, you're never going to learn that because you're not continuing far enough. So don't make it just 2 weeks into the process, really literally for a year. Like their start date, set a clock. For a year, you want to do every 2 weeks, every month, every quarter, whatever your cadence is, that's fine. Just create a cadence and then create a communication with them. Let's take a look at the fix. So the thing at the end of the day, you want to, for the longer haul, you want to touch base and communicate with them and find out what they've learning as well. So it's not just a one-way deal. Like you're kind of checking with them and say, okay, what about this? What about that? You actually want to learn from them. Oh, by the way, when you recruited me, had you said this, this, and this, I think I would have been more ready for the position. Like it took me 3 months to figure that out. But had you, when you talked to me, had you talk about, there's going to be international travel, there's going to be, something that I needed to learn, like I have to learn statistics at a different level. Had I taken a course and done that before I got on the job, I'd be there faster. Like whatever that bit is, they can tell you and give you insight into how to make that better. Again, the goal, you get a better experience, you learn, you're a better recruiter, they get a better experience. So with that, I want to pass it back over to Britt and learn a little bit more about Intello.
Thanks so much, William. And I have to say, you're just feeding me so much great content here. So, I have to say one of the favorite things that I loved hearing you talk about was laziness, right? And so we're back here in our, in your LinkedIn profile. And what I want to show you guys moving forward is this feature that we have in Intello called Send on Behalf of. And I'm not going to say that your hiring managers are lazy, although they may sometimes be very challenging to get engagement from. And one of the challenges as a recruiter that I've always faced is that we know that hiring is a #1 priority for managers. The only way that they're going to feel relief is by hiring. And sometimes they're just so darn busy that they can't focus their intentions on hiring. And so it becomes this vicious cycle. And one of the things that we've learned is through our customer Bobble Bar that they had a 60% increase in the open rates of the emails that were being sent to them, highlighting a job at Bobble Bar when that email was sent by their head of engineering. And so what I want to do here, William, is I'm going to add you to a list here. I'm actually, for the sake of this conversation, I am going to have you be a developer. So I'm going to add you to my full stack list, and I did it right here from the Chrome extension. And then I'm going to hop into that list. So I've added you into a list. So all of this can be done from the Chrome extension. You can see there you are, along with lots of other great people that I've sourced and added through the Chrome extension. And so I'm going to add you to the people that I want to email. So I'm in this list in Intello, and I'm going to click on email here, and you will see that I have the personal email addresses of these people, so I know that I'm going to get direct contact from them. And for this role, I want to reach out directly from our engineering. So I have a whole list of colleagues that I can send on behalf of. And I, just for the sake of this conversation, I'm just going to highlight this here, but if I click through, I would have the ability to pick and choose who I want to send on behalf of. And then I can also either send a unique email or I can go to a template. And so for me, I am going to pick this template right here. And as you can see, it also populates with some custom fields. So right now I'm sending this email to multiple people, but it'll address each of them by their first name. If I want to include a personal message, I can do that here. And then I can give them the ability to reach out back to me. And then if you remember too, you can also send links. So here I'm clicking, I also gave them the ability to learn more about Intello by clicking through a link. And then as I had mentioned, you can also schedule this, so you can send this email out at the time that you think is going to be best for communicating with the people that you are reaching out to. And so SOBO, what we'll send on behalf of, we refer to it as SOBO. We really built to help you communicate with your hiring managers, to help get them more engaged in the process, to also help them see how effective it is to have them reaching out as somebody. And then, also for us on the back end, we can help hiring managers in terms of triaging those responses and helping getting them involved in the process and in scheduling those phone screens for them. But it really is a great way to help your leaders engage more. And then you can also help them see what happens after you send that email. So Bill, I'm going to send it back to you because, as always, I'd be happy to hijack the full hour and talk nonstop about Intello. But I am going to shoot it back to you, and hopefully I'll have a little bit more time in the not so distant future, and I can show you guys what happens when that email actually goes off into the ether.
Absolutely. You know what I love about your experience with Intello is you were a user before you were employed there. Like you used it yourself for your bit, and you're still using it for your bit while you're there, which is genius, actually.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, not only do I love it, but I have, I think especially since I've been working here, I've said to people I would never work anyplace else unless I was guaranteed to be able to have Intello to do my job.
It's genius. That's when you know that's when you know the technology works, is when you can't imagine not being in a place without it. Like it becomes a prerequisite for hire. So the next fail for us is something that's really important right now. It's timely because candidates have changed right in front of our faces. They're asking questions that recruiters, we haven't really traditionally had to answer, or at least had to have great answers for them. And it's questions around career pathing and career development, skills development, internal mobility. They're coming to the table asking the question, yeah, I get this job, totally understand, 9, 18 months, have success, what's next? Like, what's after that? Whereas a question like that, 20 years ago, I would have never asked that question. I just would never have been that bold to ask that question. I would have really been thinking about just the job that's in front of me. But things have changed, and I don't want to say it's a millennial thing. I think it's just kind of the era of transparency that we live in, that people want to know what's next. So our particular fail here is we're just hunting the things that are in front of us. New rec, great. Go cast. Go do what we know we need to, maybe a little bit of innovation. We don't go back to the ATS. We don't go back and look at employees. We don't do any of that. We just go and cast new. And again, if we're really lazy, we just cast new in the exact same places we've always casted and just kind of hope for the best. But we're just casting new. And so that's the failure, is that we're not activating and really using both an ATS and leveraging the data that we've already pulled. Or worse than that is internally we don't even look at internal candidates. So let me give you a little bit of the fix real quick. So the fix, is pretty simple. I really, as I was thinking about this, we talk a lot, I mean, obviously, and rightfully so, we talk about the candidate experience, the candidate experience awards, and everything that's kind of been going on in the last 5 or 6 years, where we've raised the level of intellect around candidate experience, and it's no longer just a file folder or, a shredder or whatever. We are, like thinking that we have to get back to them and, do the polite thing. Yeah, what are we doing about internal candidates? So a lot of that vernacular is about externally facing people that interact with our employer brand in some way. What experience do they have when they go to Glassdoor? What experience do they have? But what about our internal candidates? What about the folks that we could fill the positions with? What is their candidate experience? What are we doing there for them to learn, for them to, because guess what? We're going to miss the talent on the front end. We're not even going to get them if we don't increase our game around internal mobility. Like that I can tell you is a for sure. We're already losing talent if we can't engage candidates on the what's next answer. So we've got to get good at this. This is actually, this is a moral imperative. We've got to get good at this because we're not going to get the talent. They just want to say yes. And then if we don't have them, what are we going to wake up with? Well, we're going to wake up with a bunch of C players that we'd like to fire, but we can't. So what my call to action here, the fix is, we need to start thinking about, I hate saying ICE, but internal candidate experience. Someone will come up with a better acronym, please. Bill Borman, where are you? Please come up with a better acronym. But the whole idea is that we've got to start thinking about it. We've got to do it. We've got to be able to communicate it to new candidates. We've also got to be able to manage it internally and do a great job there. Our jobs have changed, and to not recognize that is foolish. Our jobs have changed as it relates to career development, career pathing, skills development, training, and internal mobility. Absolutely, for sure. Let's take a look at the next file. So this is tech slothing. We all like sloths. I mean, I'm a big fan of sloths. However, as it relates to tech, y'all know that I'm an advocate and I love technology. And I'm kind of a geek and I get that, and I'm probably on the other end of the spectrum. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. But here's the deal. There's great technology. I mean, Britt's just shown you two things inside of Intello that can make your life better, make your job easier, and make you get better candidates and all that stuff. That's around us. It's just, do we choose to actually re-up and learn new technology? And because it's moving so fast, it's actually really overwhelming. It's like every day there's a new thing. Every day there's a new app, a new widget, a new bot, a new thing. And it's absolutely, we don't talk about this publicly, but it's absolutely overwhelming. And I get it. So my call there is, okay, that's kind of what's going on, and that is a fail because it's easier to go back in your shell and just do what you already knew and not relearn and not like just avoid it. Like, okay, what I'm going to do is put my head in the sand and just avoid it and hope that it all works out. That's the easy thing to do. And what my call here is, don't do the easy thing. Okay, let's take a look at the fix. So yeah, we all get it. Tech moves fast, blah, 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 blah. But because y'all are hardwired to share, as recruiters in the recruiting community, share what you learn. Okay, I just did a demo with so-and-so. Here's what I like. Is anybody else using it? Did I miss anything? Like, share with your peers and make keeping up with tech, not all of it. I wouldn't be that asinine to say you got to keep up with all the tech. Keep up with the things you need to keep up with. Just make it a part of your ritual, your day-to-day ritual, the rigor of the job. Instead of having tech separate and off to the side, weave it into what you do. I'm going to spend the first 15 minutes, and guess what? I'm going to go scan some press releases. I'm going to go and look at, maybe I'll do a demo a week, 2 demos a week. I'm going to go and look at this. I'm going to go share what I know about a tech that I'm using. Just weave it into what you do and make learning tech both fun and interesting, but also make it a part of kind of the competence of a great recruiter. Okay? So just do that, please. Let's take a look at the next fail. So this was kind of funny, mediocring. So again, probably not a word. That's not really the point. Mediocrity. So the funny thing about mediocrity is like vagary is the devil. Mediocrity is also not an enemy. And it slowly penetrates our teams. It slowly penetrates our minds where we just start accepting things that aren't great. They're just not great. We know they're not great, but we accept them. Like we're tired or we're busy. We've got kids. Our lives are chaos. Parents going in an old folks home. Whatever the bit is, it's easier to accept mediocrity at a certain point. And it's happening all around you. And actually it happens, this disappointment, it's like a damp towel that's being draped over your head when you go to work, that everyone you interact with disappoints you. Your team disappoints you, you disappoint your team, your candidates are disappointing, they don't show up, or they, worse than that, they show up and they stink, whatever. Like there's just disappointment and failure that's wrought. And that in itself can be overwhelming and be taxing emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, and so let's recognize that that's a fail. We all have this. So to act like it doesn't happen, yeah, that's just not life. Disappointment happens. So what can we do to fix it? So as vagary is the devil, mediocrity is cancer. When it seeps into your organization, it seeps into your small team, your sourcing team, your outsourced sourcing team, your RPO, your staffing firm, whatever the bit is, whatever systems you've got set up, when mediocrity shows up, you've got to kill it and be relentless in killing it. Because if it stays there, it's just like cancer. It'll metastasize and grow and spread, and eventually it'll kill you. Not literally, of course. You'll still get a paycheck. You just will suck. So let's just avoid all that and avoid mediocrity. Because when you have a choice, when you've confronted with mediocrity, you can say something or you can accept it. And if you say something, say it. Talk to them. Say, yeah, I don't accept this. You know, I don't accept this at all. This work right here, not good. Not at the level that I expect. So having, you know, Steve Jobs 101, Steve Jobs had crazy expectations and he held people to them. I'm not expecting anyone listening to this webinar to have crazy expectations, but I do want you to have high expectations of people. Anybody that interacts with you 360 degrees, I want you to have higher expectations and to root out all mediocrity. When you see it, when you smell it, when you feel it, when it touches you, scream and fight and kill it like it's cancer. I mean, God knows we've all been touched with cancer in our lives. Somebody we know has been touched with cancer, so you kind of get the bit. This is a form of cancer. Treat it like that and be aggressive in your treatment of it. Let's take a look at the next failure. So this one completely whips my ass. When someone doesn't have the respect for themselves or for me or for whatever to actually prepare, it drives me into a wall. Like, you want to know how to really get under my skin? This is it, number 9. Like, it just drives me crazy. So here, I'll just let you in on a little secret. In high school, I graduated in 1987, Arlington High School, Arlington, Texas, and my nickname in high school was Mr. Bullshit. That was my nickname. Okay, from freshman to senior, my nickname in high school. So I've been kind of good-ish at this game for quite a while. And even I don't like it when someone tries to BS me. When someone thinks that they can just wing it in front of me, I can see when people are winging it. And it's offensive. It's actually offensive to my intellect. It's offensive to everything that I hold dear and holy. So prepare. And it's not just you. I mean, because I think the recruiters I interact with, at least, are fantastic at preparation. In fact, they're some of the most prepared people I know. But it's, do you hold other people to the same standard that you have? So let's take a look at the fix, if you will. When someone thinks that their BS skills are at a certain level, generally speaking, they're not really. They're in denial. And what's worse than that, they're in denial and they've over-bloated their ego by thinking they're actually good at something they're not, or that people can't tell, which is worse because that's actually disrespect. So you've just got to say it. You got to call it. When you see it, you got to call it. Like, why are you showing up to this without a pen or without paper or without notes? Like candidates that show up to an interview and they have no questions. Are you kidding me? Who are you? So a candidate shows up to a job with me and they don't have any questions, they don't get a job, ever. I don't care who they are, because they've already told me everything I need to know about them. They accept being unprepared as normal, and I don't. So they will never flourish around me, ever. And they're showing me their cards very early in the process. So have that mentality of preparedness in your organization. Again, you touch everybody. You touch HR, you touch management, you touch the board, you touch everyone, candidates, everyone. You touch everyone. Have the expectation that they'll be prepared or they won't be around you. And again, some of that's standards, but most of it is communication. And so the fix is you being comfortable and telling people what your expectations are. That's going to be one of the best ways to fix that. Let's go to the next fail. Yeah, lying. Okay, so here's the deal. We all lie. So to act like we don't is just kind of childish. Everyone listening to this call, everyone on the planet, everyone lies. Period. End of story. You're only lying to yourself if you don't think you are lying. You're either lying via omission, explicitly, implicitly, you're just lying. So when we actually know that something's bad inside of an organization, it's a bad manager, it's a bad bid, it's a lipstick on a pig, etc. We do nobody any favors by not or by not being brutally honest with candidates. So one of the fail is accepting that this is a part of the human condition, that lying happens. So some of this, I just want you to kind of get off the phone call going, yeah, okay, it has happened. Years ago at this one point, it did happen, and I'm better for it, whatever. So let's acknowledge that it does happen. Does happen, did happen, will happen in the future. Now let's talk about the fix. I believe strongly that candidates deserve the truth, even if it's hurtful, even if it's blunt, even if it's going to make you feel better or them feel better or whatever. They deserve the truth. And I think it has a long-lasting effect, quite frankly. So a lot of people talk about the relationship between HR and recruiting. I have a very kind of simple worldview that recruiting is the center of HR, meaning if you get recruiting right, most of what happens after is easier. And if you don't get HR or recruiting right, like you fail in recruiting, then everything after recruiting is harder. Okay, so I believe there's a relationship that isn't kind of a sister relationship, but it's actually a core, central to getting HR correct is recruiting. So when we lie to a candidate and kind of put that lipstick on a pig, we get them in, we got our fill rate, okay, we feel good about getting a butt in a chair, whatever. The problem with that line of thinking is these become future retention problems. Okay, that's what we've really done is we've put a butt in a chair, but really at what cost? Because that person's just going to leave. Worse than that, or they might stay and they suck. Okay, or they're a cancer, or they're poisonous, or they're just a bad person. We've actually let them in and we allow them to be there. So we deserve to give them the brutal truth. Okay, and if you don't get the candidate, and if the candidate doesn't convert, great. You're better off because you didn't get the fill, but what happened is you didn't fill it in correctly. And I know this is definitely debatable, definitely arguable, but I believe that it's not just a game of winning, but it's a game of winning the right way. And I think all too often the discourse in our industry is about just winning, and that's it, like win at all costs, etc. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that in my soul. I believe you have to win, but I believe there's a right and a wrong way to win. And I think brutal honesty is one of the things that you have to do in winning the right way. So let's go to the next slide, which is really a kind of a crib sheet in case you've fallen asleep at any point during this webinar. Here, summed up for you, are all of the 10 fails and fixes. And again, I kind of look at this, and part of my goal is to be educational and entertaining, but also to inspire. I don't want anybody to get off this webinar and feel like their ass was kicked. That's not the goal. That's not my goal. And if you want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it because I wasn't what I set out to do, which would be good for me to learn. But this is the bit. These are the fails, and there's more. Good God, there's could have been 100 fails, but these are some of the ones. These are the ones that hit me the most as I kind of thought and dreamed about this. So without further ado, let's get back to Britt and learn a little bit more about Intello.
Thanks so much, William. I have to say, once again, some of your bullets really resonated with me, and I can be really honest in my life that I have probably been identified as lazy. But when I really think about it, for me, it wasn't so much about being lazy, but more about getting frustrated or getting bored when, you have that job that's really, really tough to fill, and it's like, just a dog, right? And you just wish that a new recruiter would start on the team so that you could give it to them. And, we've all been there, right? Give it to the new kid. But so, that for me was one of those things, like, when somebody always says to me, like, oh, what's a great success story that you've had? I like to tell a story about, early in my career when I was working in executive search, and we had a retainer from this client, and this search went on for over a year, and they paid us, and we had to fill this job, right? And so then, we kind of got to this place where I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to see where I can drum up candidates that I haven't spoken to in a year. And I share that example with you because now when I, share my screen and I show you track, you can see that all of the emails that I've sent, I can look at and say, wow, here are all of these people that I've emailed, like what's happened with them? And I can see if they've opened an email, if they've clicked on an email, and it's really cool. I wish that this could, go live for you guys, but if somebody's actually opening an email while I'm in Intello, I get this like immediate gratification where I'm like, oh my gosh, someone just clicked on my email. Oh my gosh, somebody's clicked on a link in my email, and I kind of understand what's going on with the candidate engagement. And it's not so much about being in the moment, but it's also about what's happening in the future. Like, are these people that you want to add to a talent community? Are these people, we've had engineers reply to an email 6 months later, or you sort of get this update where you're like, oh my gosh, somebody just opened up my email 6 months after I sent it. They're probably ready to start looking. And so, as I said, there are other Chrome extensions and there are other ways to get people's email addresses if you decide that you want to get away from, in-mails. But this was like that great aha for me in Intello, not only as a recruiter, but as somebody who leads a recruiting team, where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the holy grail. It's the CRM of, how we are doing engagement with candidates. And being able to have this information around how they're engaging has been totally life-changing for me. So you have the track piece, and like I said, for me as a manager, then I can also click on reports. And like I said, some people are really competitive with themselves, so they want to see how they're doing personally. I'm much more interested in how I'm doing relative to my peer group. But so I can go in here and I can see, how many emails have been sent by me. What's my click rate, how many are opened, how many have been replied to, and then, at the end of the day, if somebody replies and they engage, I can also very easily export them to my ATS from Intello. We have integrations with several ATS vendors out there. And so I can really understand too, like, what is the efficacy of what I'm sending out, and are people engaging with that content? And I can, like I said, I can do it not only for me, but I can do it for my team. And I can also download that information. So while I'm seeing it for lots of people right now, if I only wanted to see it for, someone particularly in my organization, or if I wanted to slice and dice it and see, how it is from a different day or from a different time or only on select people, I can do all of that by downloading it into Excel. So that for me, like I said, has been a great learning when I'm thinking about my own efficacy as a recruiter, but also the efficacy of my team, and sort of looking in and helping them think about best practices or how to change things up a little bit to, help with that engagement. So, like I said, I would be happy to talk about Intello all day and keep people on this webinar forever, because I am truly, sincerely just a huge fan as a user, and would love to have the opportunity to do a deeper dive. So, really looking forward to diving into Q&A right now if there are any questions, but also, looking forward to, being in communication with you, and intend to send out some follow-up information so that if you would like to do a deeper dive with Intello, that we can set that up for you.
Awesome, that sounded great. I did have a question I saw come in from Bill Borman, who Tincup was asking earlier. He just wanted to know if maybe you could talk a little bit more about Intello, and are you guys looking to become more CRM-ish? I think his wordings, I like the word ish at the end. If you could just talk a little more about that, he'd like to hear that.
Yeah, so thanks so much for the question, Bill. And it really is a good question. And, like I said, for us with Entello, I think that is a unique differentiator for us, is that you can access emails from a lot of places, but you can get all of this history and you can decide when you want to follow up with someone. And it definitely has a lot more CRM type capabilities to it. So we're continuing to develop and evolve that. We've also seen some customers like Uber who use Salesforce as their internal CRM, but work very closely with Entello, who's helped to integrate our data into their internal CRM for them. So I wouldn't say that we're 100% replacing a CRM, but it is something that we, integrate with, and in a lot of ways do have sort of that back end in terms of the track and the email. But I wouldn't say that we're replacing a CRM or becoming a CRM.
Awesome. Awesome. And Tincup, Jackie Clayton that works here at Recruiting Daily wanted to touch on one of the notes you had mentioned earlier on your failures and fixes is about, certain things you got to reach out. It's going to affect everyone. It's going to touch everyone. And she just wanted me to let you know that you can't touch everyone. That's not.
That's a good point. And really, you probably shouldn't touch everyone. I think it's really more appropriate, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Tincup, what else? Many more last minute things that we can tie up before we let everybody, get back to all the fun things that they're doing. And, we like to give them an escape from their day with these webinars, but any little last minute tie-ins we can add to them?
I think for me, the fun in kind of creating content like this is actually, my process at least, is shutting everything off and thinking about where I failed personally. So in this list, you've got 10 things that I failed at, and then I go start doing research after I think about it myself and where I've personally made mistakes. But one of the things in working with like Entello, what we wanted to do is, we wanted to kind of spice things up with somebody that uses technology to the betterment of her company, but also not overwhelm you with technology. That there was nothing, there was no interest there, but it is a fantastic demo. It actually, if you do have a little bit of time, I would say that, especially getting back to the test slopping bit, this would be a great place to start learning about how to do something better. I hope that the webinar was everything you needed. I'm going to start looking at Twitter and see what questions I got there and what I can do to follow up. Britt, what else do you have?
Well, first off, thank you so much for including us. And, I think very much to your point, around the tech slothing, I sincerely am just such a huge fan of Entello. And so it's been, as I say to so many of my colleagues here, it's been such a great honor for me to work at the company and to lead recruiting at a company whose end users are recruiters. And, when you talked about sort of the no BS too, like that for me really comes from the heart, because I've always been one of those recruiters who feels like if I don't feel like this is the best place in the world to work or the best company in the world to work with, then I know that's my, time to sort of find my next thing to do. And, like I said, for me, Entello is the kind of thing where I would never consider working at another company if I didn't have it now that I've been a user. So, similar to you, look forward to any questions that come through on Twitter and, very much look forward to, continuing to share and love to hear what other people's best practices are and other things that they're using to help them source candidates, because we're all in this game together.
Cool. Excellent. Well,
yeah, sorry guys, but a lot of the feedback coming in, they're just loving the openness and the honesty. That's a big thing that they're liking. They like Britt. Britt's a great presenter, so thanks, Britt. You're coming back for sure. And kudos to you for being so open and honest. People like the word horseshittedness, so good on you for that.
Put a trademark. I'm gonna trademark it. That's the deal. Just gotta go ahead and get that in Urban Dictionary.
There you go. Well, thanks everybody so much. We had a lot of fun today. This was great. I know I learned a lot. I'm learning something new every day. The recruiting realm and all its fascinating things that happen. This recording is going to be up in the next 24 hours. We're going to do some awesome editing, pull some highlights if need be. But please reach out with your questions. Britt and William are more than happy to answer them. We're really glad you all joined us today. Anything else from the celebrities we have on the line?
Nope. Everyone have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Britt. Everybody, have a great day, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.